everybody, I'm Well. I want to talk about how if you're like sometimes people of certain Middle Eastern ancestry right now, I feel like we're being made to feel like our opinions are not valid on certain issues in the Middle East because we didn't take a strong position. I am somewhat neutral because this is how I felt about the whole thing, and I have every right to talk about it. I got gaslit really, really bad, I realized, and I just don't want to be gaslit anymore by people. So basically, I'm not trying to be super political, but because I didn't take a pro-Israeli perspective on what is happening to people, and because I don't believe humans are collateral damage, and I don't know, this is still on my mind. Because somebody said they'd rather be Switzerland, and I said, yeah, because I hate to say it. I want there to be a two-state solution. I think that would be the best, but I don't really know how that could be peaceful right now, and I'm not really pro-Israel, and I want Palestine to be free because I feel like they deserve autonomy. I don't feel like there's any good resolutions at the moment for this, and I'm part Syrian Lebanese, so yeah, it kind of tugged at my heartstrings, especially when I saw that church that got bombed by the Israeli military, and how I hear Christians in Jerusalem are being, because I know people like, but Muslims target Christians, but there are some, and if you go back, there were people protesting, okay, against Bibi, Benjamin Netanyahu's government that's very conservative in Israel. There are Israelis that are protesting a lot of his policies. And right now, the Armenian quarter in Jerusalem is being forced to kind of leave. So this is the thing. This is why, how do I have a completely Switzerland perspective on this? You kind of have to, because I hate to say it, I just feel like when it comes to the Middle East, there's so much beautiful culture, there's so much beautiful history, but when I said that I think in the modern era there's so much conflict, I mean on all sides of the spectrum. I mean on the Israeli side, I mean on the Palestinian side, Jordanian, Syrian. I think it's sad that the people of the Middle East didn't come to a resolution, but that would mean Israel would have to stop bombing civilians, okay? And Hamas would have to stop attacking people, and yeah, there would have to be a better resolution, but everybody says you need to do this, you need to do that, you should boycott Starbucks. But by the way, I don't boycott stores because I didn't do it when conservatives boycotted Target. I don't boycott Starbucks. I just think I believe in peace, so I don't like to see a civilians attack. I don't like it when the US did it in Iraq. I think that Israel's making a big mistake. But I was so gaslit. Because I had my own opinion on this. But you find out really quick who is your real friend, and a lot of people aren't. And they make you feel like somebody of Middle Eastern ancestry, unless you take a very pro-Israeli side, that you're not a good egg. They don't have a right to do that. Because I am not Israeli. I don't not have to have a pro-Israeli stance. And I try to say, there's a lot of Israeli people right now who do not support what Bibi's doing. He was having protests because of the restructuring of the government. There are people that don't agree with it, and it's wrong. And I know people are going to say, but if Hamas came in, they would do the same thing, and they're evil, okay? You can say that there's evil on many different sides, and I don't have to be, basically, if you said that you didn't agree with what Israel was doing, if you believe, by the way, I've looked this up. Did you know referring to people as collateral damage is considered controversial? Because people are not buildings. And I just don't believe in bombing a civilian population. You don't have a good rationale for it. And yes, the church was bombed. And yes, hospitals were bombed. And people are like, no, it's because they're hiding, Hamas. But you know what? You still killed civilians. There's no good resolution to this. The UN needs to come in and they need to fix it. But once again, I feel like when it comes to the Middle East, I know a lot of people have strong opinions about how they're going to fix the Middle East, but It's just really sad. The Middle East has a lot of beautiful history and culture, but I don't think I would live in the Middle East. And a lot of people left the Middle East due to conflict. And yes, there were Muslims that persecuted Christians, but right now there are also conservative Israelis who are persecuting Christians and Muslims. So it can go both ways. It can go both ways. And yes, Hamas did something really bad. And yes, they attacked people. But that doesn't mean because you're attacked, you get to go bomb a civilian population off the face of the earth. I have a problem with that. And I've been so quiet about it because basically I was told that if you didn't agree with this, that they were out to get Hamas and that, oh, some people would get hurt in the process, even though I've never believed in that. Like, I had a big problem with the atomic bomb in Japan, and it's like I was never allowed to have my own opinion. Don't let people gaslight you. I got so gaslit that that's why I just was like, you know what, you can't win. You just can't win, and I've just been like, I don't like war anyway, and I'm not going to support any countries bombing of civilians, any entities bombing of civilians. Anybody who thinks that's a solution is a douchebag. Plain and simple. And that's what they are. And I'm sorry, you can't tell me that that's okay. Anybody who thinks that that's okay and that's going to be a good solution, there is no good solution. I think Jimmy Carter, out of all the presidents, I know a lot of people have their beef with him, but he supported the two-state solution, and I always liked Carter's, and I read a lot of things about how the two-state solution, if it could have been peacefully applied, would have been a good solution. Reason being is, you can say that you love Palestinian people, but why should they have to give up their language, culture? Because people have spoken Arabic for centuries in this region. Maybe we spoke like Aramaic languages at one time, but people shouldn't have to conform to become citizens of a land that they were living in. And there were people that were forcibly moved from this land. And even to this day, recently, there are people that are being forced from their land. And it does, if you know anything about the history of Native Americans, this is why a lot of people are getting triggered right now. Because there are liberal Israeli people that are protesting this, by the way. This is not like an anti-Israeli position. There are Israelis that don't agree with the conservative slant of the government. And that's what all those protests were about. So I don't really care what Israel does with their government. They can structure their government however they want. But there are people that are critiquing it. And right now, it's not democratic. And a lot of people are not happy about that. Surprise, surprise. And some people think everything that Bibi wants to do is great. I don't. But at the end of the day, I'm an American. I don't have to support one side wholeheartedly to be a good person. And that's something that was really on my mind for a long time. But I realized if I get gaslit by somebody, make them feel like, oh, well, you should know that civilian death is collateral damage. No, I don't agree with that. That's considered controversial. And that's where I decided, you know what? I want to live a more positive life. And if you don't want to believe in positivity and you don't seek out positivity and all you want is to seek out your version of the truth and think everybody who doesn't follow it is somehow not as enlightened, then I have to go my own way. But on the same token, I do believe in a two-state solution. I just don't think boycotting Starbucks is the way to do it. I don't believe in boycotts in general. I would think that the UN would need to come in and everybody would have to agree, but a lot of people would have to agree to peace. And it's unfortunate. I don't think there's going to be a lot of agreements to peace because right now the solution is bad. I just think, well, this is why a lot of people leave the Middle East. Beautiful cultural history, but currently many of the Levantine countries have issues, and I just really can't get behind any of the governments. Like, all the governments right now make bad choices, my opinion. But if you want to support the bad choices of those governments, or entities or groups, you go ahead. But we have a right to criticize them. And Israeli people criticize them too. Like, oh, not everybody is a conservative Israeli. There are people that have problems with the bombing of Palestine. It needs to stop. A lot of babies are dying. A lot of people are dying. People are not collateral damage. These are human lives. People are dying. It's that simple. Because we criticize what happened in Hiroshima. We criticize what happened in Iraq. So don't believe when you do something that, Colombia is cutting off diplomatic ties with Israel. There are countries right now that are going to put their diplomatic ties on freeze point. And some people would be like, but Colombia is like a dictatorship. But Israel's kind of like a dictatorship too. So is Russia. Russia's like a dictatorship. And I'm not going to go say that Zelensky in the Ukraine is very democratic either. Like, a lot of these countries, and the U.S. is not perfect, but do you see how you can never win? Like, you could go down this rabbit hole of you're right, you're wrong, and there's no winning. That's why I'm abstaining, because I'm like, well, I basically take the Switzerland position because I don't like any of these decisions. I don't think any of these decisions are going to have good, lasting impact, And I think none of it was thought out. But, at the end of the day, everybody's going to say, well, our country has to do this in order to protect ourselves. And I know some people, like, all pro freedom of speech and, like, alternative news. But then all of a sudden, this is interesting, they're trying to suppress things about the Free Palestine movement on YouTube and TikTok. Why? If Israel's so secure, why are they suppressing people doing live streams showing what's happening in Gaza? Ask yourself that. And, I don't like anybody being hurt or killed. And anybody that is okay with it, that's their problem. It's not positive. So I try to keep this topic off my channel, but it bothered me. And it's like people like are being gaslit in the US right now, being told that even though they might feel differently, they have looked at this issue and they've always had a different opinion. Their opinion's not the correct one, and only one opinion is the correct one. I'm sorry, but I don't support the bombing of civilian populations. Maybe the UN should come in and do a ceasefire. Let them do it. Let them do it. Because right now, what's working is not working. It's not working. But I know everybody's going to say, but they need to protect themselves. So you justify people dying for protection to get somebody, but it's murky and it's disgusting. But, once again, you can't win. So I pretty much just take the Switzerland perspective because I really hate conflict. I hate war. I don't really support any ideology that says there's a justification for hurting civilians. You really are to get to the bad guy. And what if we find out later on, remember what happened in Iraq? How they said that Saddam Hussein was somehow connected to 9/11 and they were going to get him because he was hiding somewhere. He had weapons of mass destruction, but he had no relation. So you better be careful. Especially the thing about this Hamas thing, the Israeli government promoted them in the early 2000s because they didn't like the PLO. And now they took over, and I don't like Hamas either, but in the very beginning, this just is very reminiscent of what the U.S. did when they were funding, like, fighters in Afghanistan or Saudi, and then later they turned out to be like little bin Ladens, but why are we doing this? Maybe Israel needs to rethink their strategies. Maybe they should have been more open to a two-state solution. Because the people that live there, the Palestinians, have been there. And I've seen people say a lot of things like they should be deported to Africa. I don't know. That really hurts my heart because I'm part Syrian, and there were people with the last name Hannah that live in Palestine that are Christians in Gaza. There were still Christians in Gaza. There's like 1,000 Christians in Gaza. So, my ancestors came from Lebanon. But a lot of Lebanese Christian people are having problems with this too. There's a reason. So don't tell us how we're supposed to feel and think, because you feel like you have made us feel like we should be expelled, or our people should be expelled so other people should be there, even though everybody does. Levantine people all have a similar genetic background. This is true. But you shouldn't come in and make people leave their land so you can build nicer houses. That's what they did to Native Americans. And that's why people are mad. And yes, there is a colonization policy in Israel, and I don't want to get super political, but this is why a lot of people are upset. But you can't win on either side. So I'm not going to blindly support what another country is doing that I find problematic. I didn't like it when our own country bombed civilians, so please stop gaslighting people. But on the same token, I don't think that boycotting Starbucks or Target makes a point. Like, there's people in your local town that have jobs there. You're not really making a bigger statement, in my opinion, with that. I just think that's why I've been abstaining. That's why I haven't been getting involved. That's why Switzerland's really the only solution. I hate to say it, because there's really no good solution. Do you think there's a good solution on all this? I don't. Anyway, thanks for watching.